Sean Diddy Combs was back in court today ahead of his sentencing next week for prostitution convictions. The disgraced music mogul and his lawyers argued that he should be released due to time served and good behavior. Combs has been in a jail for over a year now. Combs' high-profile trial, you remember, ended in July, where a jury found him not guilty on the most serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, but did find him guilty on 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution. The 55-year-old faces 2 decades in prison if the judge imposes the maximum sentence. Let's bring in NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas and NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris. Chloe, I'll start with you. Just walk us through what happened in court today.
Sure. Well, his legal team is still trying to get the 2 convictions of transportation to engage in prostitution thrown out. And what they're saying is that those 2 crimes that he was found guilty of, that it stems from something called the Mann Act, which is a federal law that was passed in 1910 that was originally called the White Slave Traffic Act, and that this has been used to prosecute consensual sexual activity and has a history of racially motivated enforcement, famously in the case of boxer Jack Johnson. So for those reasons, which they laid out today, and his attorney Alexander Shapiro went very hard on the judge, saying this never would have seen the inside of this room in federal court had the prosecutors not also brought RICO charges and sex trafficking charges, all of which he was acquitted on. So you should drop this. This is nothing more than a threesome or someone that just enjoys pornography, that he didn't actually engage in these sex acts with these prostitutes. So for those reasons, you should throw it out. The judge did not make a decision. He said he would get back to them. And he also said, see you next Friday, which is when his sentencing is going to take place.
And I'm watching Misty nodding along with some of the legal speak there. So what happens now? Because friends and family have been writing letters to the judge, too, right, to try to get his everything, get him out, basically, right?
Yeah, so props to Chloe Malas, Esquire, because you really laid out everything that happened today. So provided that he's not successful, this conviction doesn't get tossed out, and we're full speed ahead towards sentencing next week. It's going to be taken into consideration. The prosecution, what do they say? They are looking for at least 4 to 5 years. They are submitting their position by the 29th. So we're going to see whether or not they're looking for something more. The defense is going to argue what are called mitigating factors. Some of what happened today is going to be reflected in their arguments that this is simply factually not the type of case that fits into the Mann Act, and the DOJ does not generally prosecute this type of charge alone. And then there's the probation department. Now, they've submitted a report to the court where they're saying the maximum should be somewhere around 7 years. So that's taking some of the other conduct that we saw come out of the trial, drug use, violence, into account. So those are all the things the judge will consider. Judge has a lot of discretion, but does abide by some of the guidelines that are in the federal sentencing statute.
But the most anybody's asking for is 7 years, is that right?
Well, we've got to see, because the prosecution has said that they think that this is a serious case, and they might look for what's called an upward departure, meaning more than what the sentencing guidelines say.
So, Chloe, whatever the sentence ends up being, you're talking to folks in the music world. What is the sentiment on whether he could ever have another music career?
I mean, you're looking at somebody that was a billionaire, that broke down a lot of doors for a lot of people and paved the way for many Black men and women in the music industry, particularly hip hop. And he launched the careers of many individuals. You know, he has a big ego. So you could imagine that if he does get out with time served or out in a couple years, that he will continue to have his hand in businesses. And at the end of the day, he was not found guilty of RICO, racketeering, right? They were able to prove, his defense team, that he was running and is running a legitimate business and that he did not break any federal laws, and at least not in the eyes of the jury. So, you know, he could put out a book. There's many things that he could do. And actually, while behind bars, and this was in this filing that his legal team just put out, he is helping other inmates learn about business and the music business. He's actually teaching classes. So this was something that his team is saying that the judge should take into consideration when deciding his sentence next week.
We just have like 30 seconds, but I know there's also some new litigation, too, right, from a former stylist who's accusing Sean Diddy Combs of sex trafficking, rather testified at the trial over sex trafficking. Just quickly, could he face a lot more civil action?
Yeah, there's a lot pending. They're working their way through the courts. Still the statute of limitations on some types of claims that would fit. are open, so he absolutely could face more civil cases.
All right, Chloe Malas, Misty Marris, thanks so much.